Welcome to the David Spisak Show. I'm so thankful that you took the time to join us. You're going to be delighted that you did. I mean, I don't know. Well, I was saying to somebody recently that, interestingly, in the month of April, I did some research and had my team kind of look into this, and the word tariff showed up in a headline over 500 times. And that sounds like a lot, and you know why? It is a lot. But when you compare that with how often the word AI or term AI is used on a daily basis, something tells me that it's said on a daily basis about as many times as tariff is said on a monthly basis. Why is that? Well, because it's starting to permeate personal life, business life, and it's starting to do so in a really interesting way, in a very meaningful way, thanks to companies like Impel. I'm delighted to introduce you all to Devin. And Devin is the CEO of, Devin Daly is the CEO and founder, co-founder,
yeah.
Co-founder with Michael, yeah. So co-founder of Impel AI. And Impel has absolutely exploded. It seems like anywhere I turn around in the industry, people I talk to, clients of mine, are starting to more and more not just turn to Impel, but rely on Impel to do things that honestly they never thought were possible, probably even 1 year ago. So first and foremost, Devin, thank you for taking the time to join me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, David. And, appreciate the kind words and could not agree more, right? We believe that generative AI is the sort of technology step change that's on the same magnitude as the internet or the mobile device or the personal computer. And maybe just starting with a quick stat, many don't necessarily realize ChatGPT, which was the first consumer application using generative AI, is the fastest growth application in history. It took 5 days to reach 1 million users. And you compare that with like Netflix, which is the next closest, which took 2.5 months. And so to your point, AI, I believe, is deserving of all of the headlines that it's capturing today.
It really is, and I think it's so different today. I mean, the obvious thing is how quickly, things are iterating, right? And the growth. I mean, you mentioned OpenAI, Sam Altman, and that was November. Think about this, guys. November, not even 3 years ago. And in that period of time, it's almost become ubiquitous, right? I mean, just name anybody that you know that has not at least tried, messed around with ChatGPT or DALL-E or anything else that's out there, the deep research that you could do today. And it's moved so fast, Devin. I mean, you got Claude and you got Gemini and you got Metas and you got, right? What is... doggone it, Elon's, what's his called? Yeah, so, I mean, they're just, like I said, they're multiplying like bunny rabbits now at this point. And I want to go deep into the AI side. And if I can, I want to kind of split this up. First of all, I want to kind of go into the Wayback Machine, right? Let's jump into the time machine. Because I think I'm genuinely an incredibly curious person. And I think a lot of people are curious. They see companies pop up. They would love to know where in the heck they came from and how did this happen. One of my favorite books is called The Outliers, right? Malcolm Gladwell. And he mentions in that book, Devin, 3 specific, pretty prominent people in technology. And Larry Ellison and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, they were all born within about 18 months of each other. And they were all happened to be born within the same time, within this tight time window, at the precise time when computers were really in their infancy. And they all had some things in common, right? They were incredibly bright. They were obviously self-actualizing, super motivated humans that really wanted to solve some challenges. They all could see things that most people couldn't see at that time. And they all were given, one way or the other, access to things that a kid should have never been given access to. I mean, for God's sake, Steve Jobs reached out to David Packard for a part right at the age of 12. And he got access at Reed College to computers, so did Gates. Well, you mentioned AI obviously being, it's not just the next big thing. I mean, this is something that's here, but you go back in time, and first it was personal computers, then it was email, then it was e-commerce, then it was social, right? Then crypto, then blockchain, and then AI. And I want to get to all of that part of it because it's exciting. If you're in retail automotive, you're going to be mind blown what you could do today thanks to Impel and what they've created. But I do want to rewind things. Devin, take me back. First of all, may I ask, let's go way back. Where are you from? Where are you born?
Upstate New York, Syracuse area. So went to high school in upstate New York. Family's all from here. Upstate New York is a hotbed for lacrosse. So I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play Division I lacrosse. And so went to school in Philadelphia and then started my career on Wall Street. So I started in very sort of traditional Wall Street investment banking fashion. I was at Merrill Lynch on their investment banking team, focusing on software. Did sort of the traditional 2-year stint there before that headhunters started calling. And I got poached to go to a private equity firm. And there we were investing our firm's own capital in middle market, but exclusively vertical SaaS businesses. And that's where I fell in love with the model of software as a service, the predictability, repeatability, the operating leverage that you could find. And yeah, the kernel of what became Impel, I think, came because when I was at Cambridge, we were investing, again, generally in vertical software, but we had a subset of our portfolio that was focused on kind of e-commerce enablement. So we invested in like a chat product for e-commerce and a recommendation engine for e-commerce. What we realized was these e-commerce products had really strong growth, retention, CSI scores. And when we peeled back the onion to understand why that was, it was because they had such a demonstrable ROI. So if you're a chat product that plugs into Louis Vuitton, you can do the algebra that you drove a 10x ROI by elevating their conversion rate by 50 basis points, for example. And that was sort of the aha moment. My co-founder and I started racking our brains on what's the next thing in this kind of e-commerce evolution and came up with this notion that 360 product tours were a tried and true way to improve e-commerce conversion, but that there wasn't an out-of-the-box solution to create that at scale. And so that's what we set out to do. We initially targeted the fashion industry, got pulled into auto in 2015. I hired a guy from Reynolds & Reynolds to work on our fashion business. And when he changed his LinkedIn profile, one of his dealer customers reached out to him and said, I see what you're doing in fashion. Can you possibly do this for cars? And remembering like it was yesterday, we drove out of the Holland Tunnel. We were in New York at the time. And, after an 11-minute meeting, the dealer signed the contract for the highest contract value in the company's history. And, you juxtapose that with this 24-month sales cycle selling into fashion. And, we knew we were onto something. So first couple of years, we're really focused on digital merchandising. We extended beyond just 360 product tours into feature and option merchandising, eventually into F&I merchandising. And sort of the impetus for our, beginning in the artificial intelligence space, one is the math behind computer vision and merchandising, the fundamental sort of mathematics behind that is actually very similar. Computer vision is technically a machine learning algorithm. That's the same math that is actually used in generative AI. A way to think about that is predicting the next pixel in a photo or predicting the next photo in a sequence is very similar to what generative AI does, which is predicts the next word in a sentence or in a question kind of thing. And so we always had sort of the same engineering chops, that would eventually lead to generative AI. But we really came up with this thesis of AI, conversational AI, because of the exhaust data from our merchandising products. So because we deliver this rich viewing experience, it allowed us to glean really granular data that David was a performance buyer because he clicked on the engine photo, the performance spec sheet, the turbocharger video. We started supplying that information to sales reps at the dealership, but it was difficult to get them to actually read that and do anything with it. And so, we started to rack our brains for how can we leverage this really valuable data and came up with this thesis of conversational AI would be a way to leverage that data for long tail personalization, without requiring dealership process change, or for the dealerships, for the reps rather, to actually read and sort of operationalize that data. So we acquired our first business in May of 2021, which powers our sales AI, lead response, and chat AI solutions. In November of 22, as you mentioned, the exact same month that OpenAI released ChatGPT, we acquired a business called Car Labs that powers our ongoing kind of service concierge product, bringing somebody back in for fixed ops, scheduling appointments, rescheduling, targeting for tires. And then July of 2024, so coming up on a year and a couple months here, we acquired a business named Outsell, which sort of had a two-tiered acquisition thesis. One is Outsell's a marketing automation provider, and so we can now have one singular AI brain that manages not just the conversational AI one-to-one going back and forth, but that same brain manages all the automated marketing that a store puts out. But we really acquired the strategic proposition behind acquiring that business was there's an adage that as AI becomes democratized over time, the companies that will win out are those that have access to the biggest troves of training data. And Outsell's been monitoring 71 million American households going back 21 years. And so all of that data can be fed into our models to power really long tail personalization.
So interesting. I'm always fascinated the path people take. And it's so oftentimes that which you can't see, right, at the beginning. You don't know, like when you take that first step, you honestly don't know how things are going to iterate and evolve and shift. You don't even know the ground you're standing on, if it's going to be solid or it's going to shift underneath you. And it's so interesting, isn't it, that really if you were to go backwards in what you just shared, and I appreciate you taking us through that journey, but hiring an individual from Reynolds and Reynolds of all like Impel quite possibly is not here. Well, at least in this form, right? Maybe in the fashion world, right? You might be sitting on Fashion Week somewhere, right? Or Met Gala or something like that. But we're not talking right now if you don't hire that particular dude. And you saw something in the guy that frankly had nothing to do with fashion. It was something that he was bringing to the table that you saw. And then as a result, shows you the power of LinkedIn, for example, right? Or social media today, that somebody sees that. And it shows you the power of a dealer who also is forward thinking. Who, can you imagine, guys, somebody who happened to see a post about this guy shifting to fashion and looking to see what he was doing and saying, hey, can we do that here? I need that. And it's crazy. All of that had to happen for Impel to be here. Now, of course, I wrapped that around, two really incredibly bright guys, you and Michael, who had to have the ability to sit there and go, wow, this is kind of interesting. This looks like it may be more fun, faster, and an audience that really desperately needs this. And you had to have the audacity to shift on the fly, right? That thesis. So pretty incredible. I appreciate you sharing that. So as we sit where we are right now, and by the way, also well done, because there's a lot of companies that go out and acquire companies, sometimes just because they want to show year-over-year growth, right? You go back to your investment bank days, and there's companies that go and do acquisitions because they want to show that year-over-year growth, and you can certainly do that by same-store sales growth, organic growth, or as well as acquiring somebody. But it's an art form, isn't it, Devin, in and of itself, to be able to go out, seek out companies, find the right companies, the right solutions, the right tech with the right leadership that say, wow, all of this, from the people, everything in that DNA, from the people down to the technology, is a great fit for our vision of what we believe we can create maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years out, isn't it?
Absolutely, David. Yeah, that is the dirty little secret of M&A is, it's something like 60 or 80% of M&A transactions are actually value destructive, not accretive. And, it's for the reasons that you outline. It shocked us when we came into auto how few vendors in our space, when they do M&A, even make an attempt to integrate the teams and the products. They're not even changing the branding, let alone doing all of the key product integrations. And so that's been something we've been very, very deliberate on, is having a very focused product integration plan with a vision towards having, one AI brain that covers all elements of the life cycle. So the same AI solution is, conversing with you on a chat experience. And then when you convert and you submit a lead, that same AI brain is engaging with you via SMS and email, and then following up with you for CSI or F&I or accessories or service. And that's our really sort of unique value proposition, is by having that one AI brain that manages the entirety of the life cycle. Through our integration of those three acquisitions, it allows us to drive really, number one, outsized performance, but number two, it improves the customer experience. Now you've got one almost VIP concierge throughout your entire life cycle. You're texting the same number, you save the contact in your phone, you maybe favorite or star the contact in your phone. They're following up with you. You're doing what's right with the vehicle, compared to the experience most consumers have today, which is they buy a vehicle, they fall in love with their sales rep. It's the second largest purchase of their life. They pretty much never hear from that dealership again. Maybe they get some HTML marketing content. You juxtapose that with this AI VIP concierge experience that's like a high-end clothing representative at your Tom Ford store texting you when they get new fabrics in or what have you. It's really night and day from a consumer experience standpoint.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And also, if you just think of the very nature and the strength of generative AI, it defeats the whole purpose if you put it in silos, right? If you go out and you acquire companies, they each have their own silo, then you're never going to be able to fully unlock the power of generative AI. When you start putting those things together the way you have, then not only does it create a seamless, more enjoyable, more worthwhile experience, meaningful experience for the client, but it also brings massive benefits to the organization as well, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Because you're honing those profiles. I think another, benefit of conversational AI is it can sit on top of a consumer data platform. And so we're getting some information about David that can be used to drive personalization. And it's really the perfect extension of a consumer data platform in that it allows for unparalleled personalization, right? Most digital advertising channels have restrictions in terms of the amount of personalization. I can say anything that I want when driving personalization through a conversational AI experience, but it also creates this bilateral relationship where we're feeding back in data that the AI is gleaning. Again, you'd be shocked how much information consumers offer up when they're conversing with this AI concierge, right? Nobody's going to reply to a monthly inventory newsletter and say, I just had my fifth child, I can't engage right now. But when they're chatting with a concierge, they offer up incredible amount of information that can feed back into the CDP to, again, really leverage the, what is possible with generative AI, which is enormously long tail personalization. Absolutely.
Devin, do you know, I'm trying to recall, and I can't pull it up out of my brain, the first time that we saw a chatbot on a website. Do you happen to remember? I don't really remember, but over 2 decades
at least.
Ago, for sure. And they have, by and large, they have remained, and this is no offense to anybody out there, but the same way that we used to call terminals dumb terminals versus smart terminals, dumb phones versus smartphones, those chatbots have remained largely dumb chatbots, right? In other words, they engage, interact in real time with people as you respond to them, but there's no intelligence, there's no data integration, there's no generative AI. And so as a result, when you see a chatbot pop up on a website, on any website, I don't care if it's automotive, if it's fashion, if it's anything else that you're looking at, these days people expect more. don't you think? From just that conversation rather than having that empty kind of one-way dumb terminal kind of chatbot conversation, because it's always going to be cauterized, right? There's no memory of it. There's no benefit. It's not fluid. So where does that in your brain? I was joking with somebody the other week. When you're trying to hire millennials or Gen Zs, you're not going to get them excited by saying, "Yeah, we offer a complete internship on how to be a blacksmith." And then we could teach you how to sell fax machines. I mean, who cares, right? It's in the rearview mirror. Is that where we're going with chatbots, in your opinion?
Yeah, we think so, David. And, our research, I think, confirms that, in that, it's been our fastest adopting product to date with, several thousand stores roughly 15 months after launching it. Number one, we're also driving pretty outside.
Which is what product? Just so people, which
our what we call web chat, instantaneous web chat. And that's different from our sales lead follow-up product, in that sales lead follow-up is after somebody submits a lead and unmasks themselves. And that's an asynchronous email and text SMS conversation. Web chat has been our fastest growth product to date, disrupting, that category that you identified, right? So yes, I think legacy providers fall in one of two categories. They are either human staffed, which results in an average of like an 11-minute delay to get back to a consumer. And, Google just came out, that your page is not going to rank highly unless it loads in less than 1.6 seconds. So expecting a consumer to sit there for 11 minutes is just crazy. That's one option or one category. The other is it's this dumb sort of scripted logic, very sort of analog version of chat, which is not answering consumer inquiries, right? There's a reason that customers want to web chat before they unmask themselves and provide their PII. And when all you're doing is effectively gating them to get any information by demanding that they submit their PII before they get questions answered, it defeats what the consumer is trying to do. So absolutely, we've seen massive, growth and disruption in that category by offering an instantaneous solution that actually provides amazing information and conversation quality.
You mentioned also CDP. So for those who are not in this business or in the tech business, CDP, customer data platform, yes? Okay. And for somebody listening, if you could kind of break that down, what essentially is CDP, if you could share it with them?
Yeah, I think it starts with a big problem in the space that most dealers are probably familiar with, which is, the DMS and CRM systems are not very clean. They have a lot of duplicate information. I was talking to one of our large dealers, and he said when they went through their CDP onboarding process, they found that 54% of DMS records were inaccurate. And you think about how compounding, more than half. You think about how just compounding that problem is. Every Marketing piece you send out it's going to cost you, double what it should, because half of the households are, not accurate. You think about unsubscribe rates, you think about the wasted postage. And so basically what a CDP is a unifying sort of data warehouse that sits on top of the DMS, the CRM, and other key systems, and provides sort of a clean room for consumer data records. They then can be activated. You can build audiences out of your CDP. You can activate it through digital advertising. You could plug in an AI on top of your CDP that will read what David's interests and propensities and household size is and use that to tailor the messaging. And again, benefit of working with an AI provider like us is you can also then get that information from the AI conversations, what we're calling zero-party data, and pump that back into the CDP to further hone and sharpen those profiles. But fundamentally, again, it is a single source of truth for all consumers in your databases that deduplicates households, enriches them, provides a much more sort of accurate data warehouse.
And just to extend on that, for anybody who is not super familiar with how that works, we also have, and one of our big challenges in retail automotive for years and years, we've got a couple of them. We've got a tipping point when it comes to the tech stack in and of itself, right? Most dealers have 8, 10, 12 or more solutions. would-be solutions. That's the intention. And by no fault of any of these individual solutions or products to some degree, you get to a tipping point where you just can't get, you don't have the bandwidth, certain people that work at these stores, to log in to 8 and 10, 12 different things and get maximum utilization, right? By its very nature, that's just mathematically not possible, not enough hours in the day. Likewise, another challenge, as you know, Devin, is just data proliferation, right? I remember I did a keynote years ago, had to be 10, 15 years ago, I want to say. And at that time, I remember the research that I had done, it had taken essentially 70 years to get to a certain point in terms of data proliferation. And within 2 years, it had doubled.
Wow.
And every year since then, we are more than doubling that. So dealers have all of these systems that they're working with, solutions that are proliferating data. Now think about this. You got your equity mining, and you got your CRMs, right? And you got your DMS, and you got your service providers, and you got your BDCs, and all those. And so another thing, don't you think it's equally daunting and problematic, is when I have all these people in my customers' data, first of all. Secondly, they're all disparate. None of them are talking to each other. Third, every one of them could be potentially, and oftentimes, are proliferating messages outbound to my client database. And for example, I've seen dealerships where I have 7 different systems that are blowing out 7 different messages on a lease, and none of them have the same payment. So it's just like, think about the confusion and the frustration on top of everything that you said. One of the things that's obviously the most exciting thing to me about CDP, you mentioned it. You think about the deduplication, right? And you get rid of that, and the efficiency and getting rid of the wasted costs. But just taking data from all these systems and unifying it, putting it in one place. And not only does that deduplicate, but I get to leverage pieces of data we used to call behavioral data, right? All in one place in a way that is legal, legitimate, ethical, and superior in every way, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%, David. I almost couldn't have said it better myself. Like, we think about the big problem in auto is, on average, there's something like, our study showed, 35 different vendors that are communicating with a consumer. And to your point, sometimes there's different prices or different offers or different maintenance intervals that are being recommended. And, not only is the messaging inconsistent, but they're coming from different email addresses. They're not threaded. They're not, so you've just got this horribly convoluted and needless.
Can't even reply to half of them.
You can't reply to half of them. And AI presents an opportunity for the first time to unify that. So that's sort of the state of play today. With AI, instead, you can have the vast majority of those communications automated by one generative AI conversational kind of experience that provides, in our opinion, better conversation quality than most humans at the dealership are executing. And again, it's all threaded. It's all within that one experience. You can text in anytime there's a question. The AI replies 24 hours a day. You're also not making people wait. If you submit a lead overnight, most dealerships don't have a good experience for that. You wait until 10 a.m. the next morning, when consumers today are used to having everything at their fingertips. So yeah, it's our firm belief that, number one, dealerships, because they have so many vendors touching the consumer, are spending a huge amount of time on vendor management, on, copying things from one system to another. And absolutely, AI presents a phenomenal opportunity to bring order to that chaos for the first time.
I got introduced to these universal laws like 100 years ago by a gentleman named Brian Tracy, who was at the time one of the top consultants and speakers within the Fortune 100. And one of those was the law of accumulation that simply says everything counts, right? Everything you do either is going to bring you one step closer, one step further from your goal. I bring this up because Ford Motor Company, and you think about, again, where we are today, right, with all the conversations with tariffs, go figure, who would have thought? And I think everything's going to be just fine for anybody listening out there. For all the rhetoric and all the oxygen it's sucking out of the room, everything's going to be fine. Trust me. But Ford has done a pretty nice job in terms of leveraging this, right? Because they are the most American-made vehicles out there. They've got the most vehicles that are built here, and they're made in America, built in America, sold in America campaign, and their employee pricing for everybody. But it doesn't just end with the product. It doesn't end with the marketing. They also had the vision and the wisdom to say, hey, Impel has something here. And so would you touch on, for people that are not familiar with what you're doing with Ford Direct? Because the reason it's kind of cool to talk about this is everything that you've talked about from a high level, you can actually share with us, if you would be so kind, how that looks like in practice, in the real world, right? Because it's probably a few thousand dealers that are on this program, right?
Absolutely, David. And yeah, for starters, just, Ford's reaction to the tariffs and deciding, immediately to extend employee pricing to all. I mean, that's one thing that we love about the auto industry, is not just everyone talks about the resilience, but that front foot, aggression to take challenges as opportunities head on. And, I think Ford really set the tone, and we're seeing that with retailers as well. And many other industries, folks are cowering or, nervous about what tariffs are going to do. And I see the exact opposite posture from auto, both from OEMs and dealers, which is, let's embrace this thing. Volatility creates opportunity. And that's, what makes our job so fun, every day working with these amazing entrepreneurs. So we're proud to announce on the eve of NADA this year, 2025, our partnership with Ford Direct, which is really leveraging their consumer journey platform. So Ford has invested in a CJP, similar to a CDP, that transcends all tiers. So instead of, just having a clean consumer profile record at the dealer level, you're actually seeing that from tier 3 all the way to tier 1. And we're using the insights that are in that CDP, that CJP, to again drive really long tail personalization. You're able to treat leads differently depending on their propensity to purchase or propensity to service. There's a huge amount of customization that's available. So it's similar to the CDP plus AI is, a winning combination thesis we talked about earlier, but this is being done with a tier 1 CDP, that tier 1 that sort of is a tierless CDP, and being deployed to dealerships. The other opportunity we see just generally with OEMs, and something that OEMs are starting to approach us about, is really using AI to standardize brand compliant protocols at the tier 3 level. So if you think about it, right, like an OEM like Lexus spends so much money on brand and brand experience, but the actual execution of, how people are responding to tier 3 leads is often lacking, right? They're misspelling vehicle features. They're not following mystery shop protocols. So OEMs are coming to us and saying, instead, of relying on the BDC for those communications, can we establish these brand compliant protocols at the tier 1 level and cascade them down? Thus, again, there's 100% brand compliance.
And it's awesome, because you just kind of teed me up for something else that you guys do, that I've learned about, and that is your AI knowledge bank, which seems to be kind of in sync with what you just shared, right? Things that the OEMs care about. And it's interesting. Sometimes we say, okay, the OEMs are in a completely different place in many ways than dealers are, right? They've got their own agenda. They've got their own challenges to deal with. They got their own competitive set to deal with, like D2C, right? But there's a lot of similarities, right? So as much as it might be considered sometimes, or to some dealers, a pain point or a challenge to adhere to some of the expectations of an OEM, frankly, in any quiet moment, you sit down face to face with any dealer, they want the same thing. They want the discipline. They want the consistency. They want the great experience time after time. Talk to us about the power of an AI knowledge bank and how that could be leveraged. You touched on it a little bit on OEMs. How can that be leveraged just for me, for my dealership?
Yeah, absolutely, David. So our Impel's knowledge bank is really the industry's first ever RAG system. For those of you that are following some of the AI press that's out there, that's a term that's been thrown about just in the last 6 months. A RAG system is a retrieval augmented generation system. And that's generally a trusted knowledge base that sits alongside a large language model and is referenced, right? So an LLM is trained on the entirety of the internet. Sitting alongside that to ensure brand compliance is this trusted, authoritative base of knowledge. And so that could be, you can upload employee handbooks, or in the case of an OEM, we can, work with their team to build that out. And what it allows for, is huge customization. So a simple example of that would be, if somebody wants to change the AI's personality from being uber professional, sort of like, New York style diction and communication to having more of a friendly Southern approach. That's something that we've seen our dealerships in Mississippi and Louisiana do. But other examples are like, you can build out what your pricing or negotiation strategy is, or, dealerships that have a 1 hour in and out commitment, or, that you're only going to deal with one rep. All of those things can be perfectly tailored. So the AI is speaking to your strategy. It really, most dealerships equate it to, it allows you to train your AI to behave and act and communicate almost like your dealer principal would respond to, a lead or handle a customer. That's the idea, is like infusing almost your culture and approach into customizing that AI. The knowledge base is the way, that we were able to respond to tariffs very quickly. I mean, that's another benefit of AI, is it is massively adaptable. And so when tariffs were announced, we ran some surveys and found that roughly 30% of consumer inquiries that had a question, 30% of those revolved around tariffs. We're able to stand up sort of a prompt in our knowledge-based system that allowed dealerships to customize how they wanted to handle those. And, think about how much easier that is to deploy and drive consistency versus training staff to respond to those questions when, tariffs are moved, they're complicated to begin with, and they're changing all the time. And you'd have to train your staff and then check in and then retrain. With AI, within 24 hours, we stood up a model prompt that responds consistently and effectively to tariff-based questions. The last thing I would comment around knowledge base and sort of, RAG system is, in the future, we will extend this to the service capabilities of our product. The failing of many AI apps in the fixed ops space today, they don't solve the fundamental issue that dealerships have. It results in, there's lots of focus on voice AI applications that are out there. 90% of the calls, even when there's a voice AI app, still require a human in the loop, because very few people are going down that happy path of, I'd like to schedule an appointment for an oil change next Tuesday, right? A lot of people are calling in because they're saying, I heard a clunking sound in the rear axle of my F-150. That's an example of where we can work with dealerships to build out a knowledge base that will cover the Pareto principle of 80% of service issues revolve around these 20 repairs, for instance, and really fix that underlying root issue and drive value in the fixed operations space using AI.
Couple other things before we jump off of that. Fair to say that using an AI knowledge base in a dealership is a quantum leap, to say the least, from having written standard operating procedures and having those literally come to life.
Absolutely. Right? Yes, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, that's the benefit of generative AI, is it will take the foundations, whatever your training principles are, but then it will always use completely customized, never before seen content. I mean, that's what generative AI is for the first time, a computer algorithm is producing never before seen content, like a love letter to a spouse, or, a toast at a 50th birthday party, or what have you. It's creating first time seen, never before seen novel content. And so it can intake into your knowledge base all of your training protocols, but what will we put out will continue to be bespoke and personalized.
One of the things I'm going to really be looking forward to seeing. So when you look at publicly traded companies, they have to answer to a higher authority, right? You got Sarbanes-Oxley to deal with. You got SEC to deal with. Different set of expectations. You got investors that you need to meet their expectations. One of the things that has long been a bit of a challenge on that side is that by its very nature, you have to have, I think, much stricter guardrails, framework that your operators, your general managers, and your department managers have to operate within, because it's such a large scale. And it would seem to me that if they were to potentially leverage the knowledge base that you've created, they could actually accomplish both, in that they could bring to life everything that's important culturally or in the DNA of operating a business, whatever that business is, public or large private, but without eliminating the ingenuity or the entrepreneurialism that we need in dealerships in order to optimize, right? Because you have to, right now, to a certain degree, you have to put a cap on that, right? Because you have to protect yourself from the catastrophes, from the worst possible outcomes. And sometimes that also puts a ceiling, a limiter on some of the best operators out there. It would seem one of the exciting things about that is that we quite possibly in the not so distant future be able to see an intersection that never was possible before.
It's very appreciated. I hadn't thought of it that way, but absolutely, right? AI will ensure that whatever entrepreneurial ideas are, spawned at the leadership level or in the general manager's office or the dealer principal's office actually effectively get cascaded down and operationalized. Where we see a lot of dealers failing today is, they've got great ideas, but how do you communicate? How do you train? How do you retrain? How do you check quality? With AI, a lot of that goes away. You have guaranteed, consistency and compliance with whatever that leadership principle is.
You also have the potential, and obviously this could go in many different directions, and this is where it will always take great leadership, right? Combined with that AI to get the magic that everybody really wants. But there will come a day, no question, that imagine taking the best of every associate that you have. Imagine from somebody who's a valet or a porter to somebody who is great at creating SOPs, to somebody who's the best person when it comes to cash flow management, the best person at minimizing CIT. All these things can ultimately be pulled up into an AI knowledge base where everybody will be able to benefit. It's extraordinary. It's really exciting. That thing is.
Thank you, David. Just one other comment I would have on leadership is just that's some of the anecdotal feedback we've gotten too, which is because of how complicated the vendor stack is for most dealerships. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, your leader in a store would be somebody that could train people, that could motivate, that had high emotional intelligence. Now the person that gets to the GM or leadership role is the person that can manage all 30 different vendors and know how to work the systems. And so yes. What dealers appreciate about our product is when it's implemented, because it brings order to all of that chaos and reduces the duplicate work, things like that, it allows their leaders to get back to doing, what they wanted to do, which is
and what they do
exactly.
best. What the best part of a leader, right? Which is that EQ and that personality. And so a couple of the things I wanted to touch on selfishly, if it's okay. And that's, talk to me about your thoughts on an AI operating system. So everybody's familiar with the term DMS, data management system, right? DMS, CRMs, CDPs. Talk to me about, in your mind, what is the AI operating system? And that is really the future of AI. That's available right now today in retail auto, and why does it matter?
Yeah, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's this concept of having one AI brain sitting on top of your core systems, your CRM, your DMS, your CDP, and using that one singular central nervous system to manage the entire consumer lifecycle, from helping somebody purchase a vehicle in their sales process to doing more sophisticated AI-based CSI surveying to targeting folks for F&I and accessories post-purchase, which we believe represents a huge opportunity, to getting somebody coming back in for service, whichever it could be 500 touch points during their ownership of that vehicle, to eventually, based on driving habits, DMS data, ownership history, we know when they're likely to sell that vehicle back. So we reach out to them for lease pull ahead or vehicle acquisition. And again, really having that same AI brain sharing insights across all of those touch points. We're finding by doing that, dealerships are reporting not only record lifetime value for consumers, but again, a significantly, enhanced consumer experience. Last comment I would make is, dealerships that are really embracing an AI operating system have been reporting record Q1s, record Aprils, and more than double the industry average in closing rates by, again, having that one fulsome concierge type system.
That doesn't surprise me in the least. And I think what it also does, you've heard many times over the last, especially 5 years, how do I future-proof my dealership? This changes the narrative on future-proofing a dealership, right? It's not about just the brand. It's not about just the location. It's not about just, one or two products or solutions you're using. It's about being able to pull all those things together in a way that creates this hyper-intelligent, hyper-integrated, a super efficient process that allows the best part of your people to shine and allows you to instantly respond and react to whatever the market throws up in front of you. It's pretty extraordinary when you think about it. I wonder, I'm curious, in your brain, I asked you about chatbots. I might as well attack everybody. Hey, listen, I don't have any hate for chatbots personally. I don't love to interact with them, but certainly nothing against anybody who has a chatbot as a company. It's just it's the evolution, though. It's where we're going. Here's another one. Is it quite possible, it seems to me, that when we go forward in the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years, I'm not talking long from now, that when you look at a tech stack, we're going to be looking at it quite differently, because it's not going to be a matter of just the UI, right? The UX of individual products or solutions, but what is the quality of the data that each one of those solutions serves up, because that really becomes what feeds the beast of AI that allows it to be great. Is that a fair statement?
100% garbage in, garbage out. And yes, the quality of the data is 100%, what will make AI more effective and accurate. That's why we, acquired the Outsell business for over $100 million, is to give us a huge amount of training data. And, we also, because we are the category creator, market leader with probably 10x more AI customers than our next closest competitor, we've got a huge amount of conversational training data as well. So it's definitely something that we value. In terms of future-proofing, yeah, absolutely, right? We're seeing it this year. We've definitely crossed the chasm. We have large dealer groups coming to us, large OEMs coming to us, and not to try to fear sell, if you will, but yeah, it's our belief that dealerships that resist implementing, this amazing step change of technology could be left behind. Those that didn't embrace the internet, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Exactly. Last comment I would make is, yeah, fundamentally, we think, this has the power to transform a retail operation, right? Dealerships are massively human capital intensive. They've got 150, employees per dealership. And, with the volatility that we've seen in the last 5 years, we believe, it could effectuate an AI evolution that leads them to be more automation and AI enabled. That's the benefit of AI. It allows you to scale up and down with this volatility, whether you're in COVID or inventory short environment or glut of inventory or back to tariffs, which could cause shortage. It allows you to scale up and down very, very seamlessly. It also allows you to shift strategy. So what we've seen is dealers that think tariffs are here to stay, they might want to focus on used vehicle acquisition. So they're using AI to go out and mine their DMS for people that might buy back or to work their instant cash offer leads. Others think, I want to focus even more on service. And so they're directing their AI towards fixed operations. Again, it allows you not only to scale up and down, but also to change strategy very seamlessly.
Yeah, and I want to get to one more thing, and then if you'll indulge me, perhaps a little bit of a speed round, because every comment, everything that you're sharing is just firing off a bunch of things in my brain that I'm fascinated by. I think people would be interested in. Number one, though, before I get to that, the last thing I want to touch on is, AI quite definitely will not replace people. It cannot replace people to the greatest extent. It cannot create relationships. It cannot nurture relationships. It cannot create that human connection. It's getting closer and closer. But the companies, I believe, that are going to be great are companies like you that are allowing people to leverage AI in a very meaningful, not a novelty way, but in a very meaningful way that allows the best of them to be deployed, and allowing them to get the best of efficiency and productivity because of being able to work with that AI. So that means you're converging people with tech. Here we go again, right? And I want you to talk to me about you also have an industry first AI certification, and you happen to be doing it with a company. Another company like yours I'm a big fan of, just because I think they're so far ahead. Like Impel, they're just so far. I think they're so far ahead, like your company is in some respects. Sometimes when you're so far ahead, it takes them a minute to catch up. But ultimately, there will be a tipping point where dealers will understand you either better jump on board or you're going to be competing with me. Hello? You're going to be competing with me. And if I got the best team and I've got the best AI partner, that I'm using the best tech that Impel is offering me, and I got the best training with a company called Rocked, right, that's allowing me to be able to disseminate training in a really effective way, because they have these, they let me use kind of a demo version to check it out. I've known Marco for a long time, back to his automotive mastermind days. Brilliant guy. And being able to allow a person on the floor to assimilate information in 2 minutes, 2-minute videos, right? So anybody that they would claim that our people in our business have ADHD, like 2 minutes, like any one of us can handle that. Why did you choose? I'm curious from your perspective. Why did you choose Rocked? Was it for the same reason? And can you just share with us why this is such a big deal? Whether somebody has AI right now, whether they're deploying everything Impel has right now, the fact that they could take advantage of an AI certification, it just seems like that would be a no-brainer.
Yeah,
right?
Yep, absolutely. So first off, couldn't agree with you more. AI is not about replacing people. It's about offloading the menial, repetitive, tedious tasks to reduce organizational drag. And what we're finding is, job satisfaction improves pretty materially when you implement AI, because you can spend more time on the creative or on what makes you money, like building relationships, TOing to the F&I office. So couldn't agree with you more there. AI is a supplement or an amplifier to your human capital that you've invested in. Regarding the Rocked Industry Certification and Education Program, first off, this is much, much needed education. To your point, David, this world of AI is moving at a blistering pace. There's a new model that comes out, it's DeepSeek, for example, came out of China recently, or you've got, Sora, which is the video production application. If you look at a before and after, for example, of Sora's video output quality in just 1 year, it is complete night and day. So generally, with how fast things are moving, there's a lot of confusion. They don't know what generative AI is. So generally, this is a much needed educational initiative for the industry. I would say those that benefit from AI, again, AI is not about taking jobs. Those that will benefit in the next 5 years are those that embrace and learn to work alongside artificial intelligence, right? You could see a world where, a BDC manager or an internet manager in 3 years is applying for a job, and being able to say that they're proficient in various forms of automotive AI could have enormous value. And I mean, that's our goal with this certification, is that folks are, putting their pin when they go to interview, they're putting their certification pin on their lapel, and, they're putting this Rocked Impel AI certification on their resume. And so that's really, I think what this program is all about. I would say, the last goal of this is, we think this is a service to the category at large. And, in our view, is another step in really cementing Impel as the only de facto standard of automotive AI.
How long does it take to get that certification?
12 hours, roughly. But to your point, broken down into very short tidbit sort of videos. So it's very much a TikTok style or masterclass style, broken down into very digestible 1.5 to 2 minute lessons. So it takes probably a month to 45 days. In total, the class time plus exam time's like 12 hours.
Okay, very cool. And something that literally anybody could do, and there is, whether anybody thinks so or not, is there value in my porter and my valet and my receptionist and my office support people, a value in my technicians? Yes. The short answer is yes. Like, there is no downside to having an AI certified workforce, right? I mean, there is no downside. And think about how tough it's been to recruit people into this industry. Think about, this is just, I think, quite possibly just a huge blessing to the industry, because you now can go out and open yourself up. You don't have to hire somebody based on, hey, do you have experience with this DMS? Hey, do you know how to use this particular solution? Don't worry about that. Hire the person that's the right person, that has that high EQ that you're looking for, that's going to fit your esprit de corps, the teamwork part of it, the critical thinking aspects of things. And when you have that, you're able to provide them with that certification training. Then you're able to provide them with absolutely the most forward, most innovative tools out there in the marketplace. Man, you could create a team, a sales team, a service team, a BDC team, a business office team, like you just couldn't even dreamt of just a handful of years ago. Do you agree with that?
100%. Absolutely. Hire people that don't want to get bogged down in the drudgery of responding to email leads asking to send more photos, right? Think about how much time that takes the average person to send interior photos. You have to go locate the VDP. You have to download the photos. You have to try to upload them to an email. You get, exceed the maximum file size. You get kickback from a spam. Like, it could be 30, 45 minutes. Somebody spending doing repetitive tasks like that, or tracking down the Carfax. All of that can be offloaded so you can focus on somebody that's great on the phone and building relationships and closing and TOing and building rapport and upselling. So absolutely.
So you talked about the fact that you have 10 times more customers than anybody else in AI solutions. And it's funny to say this, sometimes you'd say somebody is just a decade ahead. It's like, that doesn't happen in AI, because it just keeps, like I said, iterating. But you're literally miles ahead of anybody else, any other company. And what I really admire and respect is you're not sitting, you and Michael and your team, they're not sitting on anything. You're not sitting here impressed with what you built yesterday. You're already fascinated, interested, curious, and excited about what you could do tomorrow that maybe people can't even see right now. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. We are always innovating. We're hiring an incremental 80 or so people in product and engineering this year. So despite having a market leadership position, we're not slowing down or optimizing for EBITDA. We think it's early innings. We see, continued applications. We're fully investing in agentic, which we think opens, a huge number of new use cases for the product. So absolutely, we are full pedal to the metal on product development.
All right. Well, listen, I was going to go into the speed round. I do want to ask you this. First car you ever owned, Devin?
Honda CR-V. The great car.
That's not bad. Great.
I don't remember the year. I don't know. It's 2006, 2008, something like that. It was a great car. I grew up in upstate New York, so you needed four-wheel drive. You pretty much needed, something with clearance and SUV. And it was a nice car. It was in gray.
All right. But you're a Manhattan guy now, aren't you?
We have an office in Manhattan. I live upstate.
You do live upstate, but the office is in Manhattan. Okay, so you stayed true to your roots in Syracuse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're up near the West Her gang and the Basil family and all those wonderful people.
That's right.
Up there.
Yes, we welcomed Basil to the auto event with Senator Moreno that you were at.
Yeah, really good family. Great people. Absolutely wonderful people. And by the way, I have to give you a major shout out. And by the way, Marco was involved with that. Rockhead was involved with that. And John Fitzpatrick at Force. But you three organizations, to put together something like that in a relatively short amount of time, it was absolutely spectacular, wonderful group of people, and an opportunity to be able to see and spend a little time with Bernie Moreno, Senator Moreno. I still have a hard time, it doesn't come out of my mouth. I met Bernie, forever ago, years ago, when he was a Mercedes dealer and I was in the Mercedes world. But it's just, how cool is it to have somebody of that caliber of a business person, that caliber of a dealer that is sitting representing us right now in the Senate.
Yeah.
Pretty extraordinary.
It was our pleasure. Similarly, I think it was much needed, education for the space in a time of massive turmoil. And look for more of those types of events coming from our three organizations.
I look forward to it as well. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join me today. This has been nothing short of it blew, far exceeded my expectations. I knew it was going to be fascinating, and you've gone well beyond that. I could certainly easily see the opportunity and the need to have you back, every at least couple months, because for God's sakes, in your world, everything will change by then. I can't imagine the announcements that are going to come over the course of this year and next year and beyond from you. But thank you for all the contributions that you're making and your team are making to put the industry and the dealers in the industry, the OEMs in the industry, in a position to truly be future-proofed and to be able to rely on the best thing about our industry, which is and will always be our people. But thanks to what you're doing, it's allowing them to be better than they've ever been, more effective, efficient, productive than they've ever been. And dare I say, probably having a lot more fun when you take the mundane, the drudgery, those redundant tasks off their plate, and allows them to have more time to do what they really would love to do. And that would be to blow a customer away, to exceed their expectations, to sell cars, to service cars, and sell parts out there. So thank you. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you the next time I'm in New York. And all the best to you.
Thank
and your
you, David.
team.
I very much enjoyed the conversation. And yes, love the opportunity to come back with how fast the world is moving. I just gave a presentation on what's new in AI at the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference, and what's new in the last 6 months, and had plenty of content. So look forward to hopefully sharing some more insights with this group soon.
I look forward to it as well. So for everybody who took the time to listen, please go to davidspisak.com. Now, of course, first and foremost, you could, obviously wherever you get your podcast, you're going to be able to hear this full interview with Devin, and quite possibly you've already just finished listening to it. If you had, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it so much. Please take the time to do a review. And most importantly, two things. Share this episode out with anybody who's interested, curious, or fascinated by AI themselves, whether it's in this business or outside this business, because everything that Devin is speaking to, everything he's talking about, and everything Impel is creating, it's inside retail automotive today, thanks to them, but it's also outside of retail automotives. And last but not least, go to the site. We're going to have show notes there, and also ways that you could get a hold of Devin. So if you, your dealership, your group wants to learn more about the AI Knowledge Bank, about if you're a Ford dealer and you want to optimize that program, if you want to do AI certification or anything else that you've heard, please take the time to go there, and we will help you connect with Devin and his team. Thanks so much for joining. See you next time on the David Spisak Show. Thanks so much.